So, let's talk about Quant, or QNT. Now, this is a name you might not see in the headlines every single day, but listen, it's quietly building some of the most essential plumbing for our future digital economy. We're talking about connecting banks, major companies, and even those government-backed digital currencies. We're going to break down what it is, exactly how it works, and ask the big question: could this become the invisible architecture of modern finance?
Okay, so to really get what Quant is all about, you've got to ask yourself a really simple but super important question. Why can't a huge bank just easily use Bitcoin and Ethereum and their own private internal systems all at the same time? Why can't they just connect? I mean, it seems so basic, right? But this single issue is probably the biggest barrier to mass adoption. And the reason is a problem called fragmentation. Yeah, see, every single blockchain, every internal banking system, they're all like their own little digital islands. Each one speaks a completely unique language, and there are no bridges to connect them. And this chaos, this is the exact problem Quant was built to solve. And look, for any big company, this isolation it's a total non-starter. You just can't operate in a world where your systems can't talk to each other or share data seamlessly. To get these major institutions on board, the entire crypto space needs one thing more than anything else: interoperability. I mean, this is it. This is the holy grail. It's the magic word that promises to connect all those digital islands into one single functioning continent. The ability for Bitcoin to talk to a bank's private ledger, which can then talk to Ethereum all at the same time. This is the promise that gets institutions very, very interested. All right, so how do you actually build those bridges? Well, this is exactly where Quant and its core technology, Overledger, step into the picture. And what's so fascinating here is that Quant isn't trying to build yet another blockchain to compete with everyone else. No, they're building on a completely different level.
See, Overledger is a layer that sits on top of all the other networks. The best way to think about it: it's less like another country and more like a universal translator for the entire digital economy. It's an API, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a tool that lets developers plug into any system they want, without having to become an expert in a dozen different complex coding languages.
And what this tech lets you do is pretty ambitious. Developers can build what are called MApps, that's multi-blockchain apps, that can work across different networks at the very same time. They're also developing something called Overledger Fusion, which is a tool designed specifically for the future of finance, things like central bank digital currencies. This just shows they aren't only thinking about today's crypto market, they're aiming to be the backbone for the tokenized economy of tomorrow. Okay, this all sounds fantastic, right? But what about the token? Where does QNT actually fit into this whole puzzle? Well, if Overledger is the operating system, then you can think of the QNT token as the license key. It's the thing that actually grants you access to this powerful network.
And this, right here, is where the tokenomics get really interesting. There will only ever be about 14.88 million QNT tokens. That's it. A fixed, finite supply that will never, ever increase. Scarcity is baked right into the core of the entire network. Now, this scarcity is tied directly to real-world use through a pretty clever feedback loop. It works like this. Say a company wants to use the Overledger network. First step, they have to go out and buy QNT tokens. Then, they lock up those tokens to pay for their annual license. Here's the key part. Those locked tokens are taken out of the circulating supply. So the more the network gets used, the more QNT gets locked away, and the less there is available on the open market. Okay, the theory sounds solid. But that brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Is anyone actually using this stuff? Because let's be honest, a brilliant idea is completely worthless without adoption. So let's take a look at the signs of life.
Well, for starters, let's look at the community. You've got over 500,000 followers across all their social networks. Now look, that doesn't guarantee success, but it does show a strong and growing base of people who are paying really close attention. But that's just the surface.
But followers are one thing. What's happening behind the curtain is arguably way more important. Over on GitHub, which is where all the developers share their code, there are over 10,000 commits. Just think of that as a direct measurement of how much work is being done. It shows that programmers are actively, consistently building and improving the core tech. This is real work.
And all that hard work, it's actually building a real ecosystem. We're talking over 100 decentralized applications, or dApps, that have already been built using Quant's technology. This is proof that the infrastructure is being used for a lot more than just speculation. It's being used to create actual products and services. So let's be real here. Do these numbers guarantee a home run? Of course not. But what they do show is real, tangible momentum. They point to a project with genuine tech development and growing real-world use. And that sets it apart from a whole lot of the hype-driven projects you see out there.
So we've seen the adoption, we see the potential, but what does the future actually hold? Because, for all this promise, the road ahead for Quant is definitely not a smooth one. There are some serious challenges.
First off, dealing with big institutions, man, that is a slow process. We're talking years, not months. The competition is also absolutely fierce. You've got heavy hitters like Cosmos and Chainlink all fighting for the same prize. Critics also point out that we need more public data to really track how the token is being used. And, to be fair, some in the community have raised concerns about communication and project delays. These are all real hurdles they have to overcome.
So when you put it all together, you're looking at two very, very different paths for Quant. In the absolute best-case scenario, it becomes the essential, regulated go-to plumbing for huge companies and governments, with that fusion technology driving massive value. But in the worst-case scenario, competitors just win the adoption race, and QNT ends up as a niche token with limited use and pretty slow growth. The stakes could not be higher.
And that really leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is Quant a truly critical piece of infrastructure for the digital economy that's coming? Something being quietly built to solve one of the biggest problems in tech? Or is it a highly sophisticated solution that might just struggle to find the widespread, urgent adoption it needs to really succeed? The technology is real, but only time is going to tell which path it ultimately takes.